Okay, so further investigation of this 1993 Chevy Blazer. I want you to know that the former color of this torque converter, when it left here a few months ago, was this shade of blue. And it was all that shade of blue. So you see the blue? That blue all the way around. Now, when we move out and look at the converter from this angle, you will see that it is no longer blue. It is almost a rust kind of color, semi-brown, but pretty much mostly rust. The reason for that is because when metal, specifically iron, gets so hot that it glows red, like no kidding, the iron would have to be near or actually glowing an orange color. You know, when you see something roasting really, really hot metal to the point where it almost changes form, getting that hot. When something gets that hot, then it changes the color of the iron into this rusty kind of color, and whatever color it was painted prior to the overheating, that paint just goes away. It dissipates. The heat melts it, obviously. So yeah, this thing had a leak nowhere out of the transmission. This is the bummer. This is why it's so important to check your transmission fluid pretty much whenever you stop for gas. That's the wisest thing you can do. Whenever you fill up your tank with gas, let's say you do that once a week, twice a week, whatever it is, that's approximately when you should check your fluids. Some people go over that and they check the fluids before they drive off anywhere. That's the smartest thing you can possibly do, because you never know, something can happen while you're not driving your car. Somebody could crawl under it and cut the cooler lines, and then you take off in your car and burn up your transmission, and you could have prevented it by simply checking your fluid before you left. I don't know, I've seen that happen before, that's why I brought it up. But anyways, this transmission was leaking because fluid floats between this transfer case 4x4 adapter piece right there. That piece that bolts onto the back of the transmission is held on by 4 bolts. 6 bolts hold it to the transfer case, and then fluid floats in this vector right here. It floats there, between there, and it's semi-pressurized. It's low pressure, but it's still pressure. I don't know what the exact PSI is at that location. I'd have to look it up. But it may have been leaking into here, into the front seal of the transfer case. It wasn't, the transfer case really wasn't that over full, and I think we may have already replaced the seal. Let's check it. Oh yeah, soft and mushy, so it wasn't leaking there. So damn, I guess it just must have been a slow leak between the transfer case and the transmission, where the 4x4 seal is, or perhaps where it's wet in this whole area back here. You can kind of see. So it looks like it was leaking somewhere out of this area. See where it's all wet down there? So it's possible it could be a pan leak, pan gasket. It's also possible there could be a crack in the case. We're going to investigate really, really closely just to see for sure. If there's any cracks, we'll see them, we'll find them. And do some do Inspector Gadget do. It's not really a laughing matter because it sucks, because I'm gonna have to charge him something, because it's not fair to us that we should have to cover a complete rebuild when the problem could have been prevented by just not driving it or keeping it full of fluid. Because when the transmission gets so hot that it makes the torque converter change to that color, that sucker was glowing orange. And it takes an extraordinarily high amount of heat to do that. I mean, we're talking, I don't know what the exact degree is, but it's insanely high. You know, the average temperature is somewhere around 180, 205 degrees is on the high side. But, you know, when you get way above that, you know, 300-400 degrees, that's when shit starts glowing. That's when cast iron melts off all the paint and changes the color of the iron into a rusty looking color. So that sucks. But, you know, I always work with people. You know, maybe I'll eat all the labor, which is the most expensive part, and she'll just pay for the parts, which is the most expensive out-of-pocket part, as far as what I actually have to pull out of my pocket to go and purchase. So, you know, maybe she cover that part and I'll eat the labor part, and you know, she gets free expertise and experience labor from a professional for free, even though it wasn't a defect in my shit that broke the transmission. It was just a lack of paying attention to fluid level. You know, most people just get in their car and fucking drive. They don't give a shit about, you know, if there's fluid in it, if there's oil in it, if there's antifreeze in it, if, you know, shit's been oiled and lubed up and changed and maintenanced and so on and so forth, because most people don't really have time to fuck around with that kind of stuff. You know, I don't feel like doing it ever. But when I stop and get gas, you be damn sure I check my freaking oil. I can't check my transmission fluid because my transmission is a Mercedes transmission and a freaking Dodge. And yeah, I'm not paying $80 for a freaking dipstick just so I can check my damn transmission fluid. If I don't see any leaks coming out the bottom, I ain't got no transfer case, I ain't got no place for the transmission fluid to go other than on the fucking ground. And so if it ain't leaking, it's full. And if somehow somebody siphons out my transmission fluid and I burn it up that way, fuck it, I know what I'm doing. I rebuild my own transmission. So, you know, if you can do that yourself, you can afford to be somewhat careless. But if you can't, don't fuck around. Check your fluids every time you fill up for gas. And if you don't, and you burn up your transmission because you run it low on fluid, you must have lots of money to spend because it's gonna cost you. You know, any other shop would say, fuck you, you bought a whole nother transmission. You pay for your entire repair all over again. Neglect, abuse, whatever. Bye-bye.